starting with this meeting. Hello, everybody. I'm Parvi Bansali, Editor-in-Chief Optima, and I welcome you all to the first Research Bootcamp of the season. Economics at its heart is a study of scarcity, choice, and allocation, but economics research is where that study comes to life. It's where we move past the simple theories and dive into the messy, complex reality of data, policy, human behavior. And at Optima, we aim to equip you with a clear understanding of academic papers, their flow, their structure, and this boot camp will allow you to explore and examine the what's and the how's of research. And I'm so excited to introduce you to the speaker for the day and welcome her to her alma mater, Ms. Faguni Avasti. She's a business analytics major and an MSc candidate passionate about turning her data into strategic insights. She's worked as a research assistant at USD Ireland, and her research paper titled The Impact of Urbanization and Economic Growth on Environmental Quality in Metropolitan Cities in India was recently published in the book Political Economy of Emerging Urban and Peri-Urban Spaces in India with Springer Nature. Needless to say, she knows a thing or two about research, and I strongly hope that this would be an insightful session for all present here and that you make the most of it. Fagani, the floor is all yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Purvi. It's very nice to be here again, seeing the fresh faces. So just to so I'm Faguni Avasti, and I will be. So as far as I understand, this is one of the first. I think first or maybe one of the first boot camps for this session, right, for you. So this will sort of be a crash course of, I will not be diving into the contents of the research papers that I have written, just how they've been written, how you can write them, the basic know-hows, right? And also, I will not be going into great detail for every methodology. I would encourage you to ask me which ones would you like me to elaborate upon, because I don't want to elaborate on a step that would be of no use to you. So keep making notes, and I promise you can ask twice. It's fine. None of us are teachers here. It's cool. So let's have a fun session, right? And just so I know, like, are there any first yearies here? Like hands or anything?
I'd request all the members to turn on their cameras. That would be great. And it'll make the session more interactive.
Quite a few first series. Great. Okay, good to know. So we're starting off early, and it's good to know that there's good interest. So great. I will start off by sharing my screen. 1 second. Yeah. So before I dive into the papers, I also want to know if any of you have written any research papers, are working on any research papers or articles, like just the titles or anything if you can write in the comments. Just so I know what you guys have worked on or haven't worked on also. Like if you've not worked on anything, that's cool too. If you have though, I would love to know the titles or I'll give a minute or two. If there are no responses, it's fine. We can totally move on. It's totally okay. No? No articles also? Okay, no worries. So it's completely fresh, completely new to everybody, is it? Okay, no worries. We can work with that. So, we have written Below Utopia of 21st Century. Okay. Okay, we have blog posts. Yeah, blog post counts. What are the topics that you might have written? I'm sure they're related to economics. On the utopia of 21st century, what is the data you're dealing with? What are the parameters of your research? Any slight detail? Simply because, what I was thinking was that when I'm explaining the methodology, I could refer to these titles, I could refer to the context of your own papers to explain it in the methodology steps that I will be discussing. That's the purpose of this exercise. That's okay. We'll keep them rolling. Until then, I'll begin. So, all right. There are like multiple ways in which yeah. So I'll show you yeah. So there is like multiple formats in which you can publish your research. All right. There's of course these research papers in which you can do modeling. You can do you take some data, whether it's secondary or primary. Primary data is when you collect your own data, when it's like unique, your own survey data, etc. Secondary data is data that you extract from, say, authentic government sources, and then you research upon it. So, whatever it may be, you analyze it, you model it, and you give your novel contribution. That's a research paper. And another form of publishing is literature review. So this, I don't know if you're familiar with. For example, this is a literature review that I found. So it's like about the electricity load data, right? So for example, it's very important to study the electricity load patterns of any country or global electricity consumption as well, so that you can optimize energy consumption and move towards a more sustainable energy path, right? So this paper basically discusses different research papers that exist, different methodologies that exist, right? They have researched upon different authors, what they have done, how they have, every author is approaching a similar problem, but their processes are different, right? So this author specifically has collected all of these papers and categorized them. Okay, these are like, for example, 10 papers follow A methodology, 20 papers follow B methodology. Why they followed A, why they followed B. Simply so that if you are also going to be diving into this, you should know what is the sort of, what the current scenario is, what is the current research, how it has been approached, and what you can contribute in. Okay, so for example, this is the residential electricity load profile methods and top-down approach and bottom approach. I know it's a bit out of syllabus, I think, so I think I'll just show you this. Wait. Yeah. So article IDs, right? So they have like shown like each article is studied each article and shown which article works with what. For example, A26 does not have number of simulated dwellings or households. So that's something that's a data set that they do not include, right? So what are the different parameters in each paper? Yada yada. Okay, so that is one more way of publishing, which you do not have to do any mathematical modeling whatsoever. Okay, so now 99% of the time you will be dealing with research papers like these, right? In which you will have like, hold on. Yeah, like, you will have figures like these, you will have to deal with data, yada yada. So let's discuss the methodology for these first, okay? So there is the industry standard for as to how to deal with such a thing, such a paper. How, for example, if you have, let me check if anybody has put up any topics. No. Okay, great. So, right. So, for example, I'll take this one only. So this electricity consumption data that I had was given to me by the university, in which they basically have smart meters and they can measure at this time this building or this room was consuming this amount of data. And the university is like a whole city on its own. It has n number of buildings, all sorts of buildings, movie theaters, everything. So you can basically study it like a city, but in an educational plus residential kind of context, right? So that was the context of this paper. I had to take that electricity data and understand how the consumer behaves, how we can predict consumer behavior, how can we lower the peak consumption so that it does not put so much load on our electricity consumption. So that was the context of the paper. So just to show you how a general paper is written, what's the general format that is followed. I'm sure you've all already seen papers, read papers, but this is just a few seconds into what it looks like. So all of this is fine, like acknowledgements and stuff. Executive summary is important. This is usually done more so for business contexts. In a lot of the economics papers, you'll see abstract instead. The purpose of executive summary or abstract is that within the first look into the paper, any person who is looking for literature reviews, looking for similar papers, can see what this paper is about. They don't have to read till the bottom to know what it looks like, right? So executive summary should have your findings, your objectives, your methodologies, everything summarized into a short, like one pager or two paragraphs, not more than that. So that is the purpose of, sorry, executive summary. Or yeah, actually I'll read that. Manipulates consumer behavior. Okay. Saying currency crisis in emerging economies. Okay. Perfect. Thank you so much for these. Okay, thank you so much. I will be referring to these. Thank you. Okay, so next, usually there's an introduction in which you talk about the business context, right? Like what I keep on saying business because I've pivoted from economics to business analytics. But what I need to say is that you introduce the relevance of your topic, right? Why it's important, why your contribution in this field in today's time is relevant, right? You give some context to the reader. You explain the different variables that are important to you in this. For example, there's reference load profiles, which is basically when you have understood the data, when you model the data, finally you give some characteristic to the buildings, right? For example, if anybody knows market analysis or like consumer baskets, so basically that, for example, Amazon, right? So what they do is they take their data consumers' data, and they create baskets out of them. Okay, so these are like teenagers who are into fast fashion. So that's one basket. Okay, these are parents who are looking for children's, and what would their consumer basket look like? They would have baby products, they would have products for parents that they're taking care of themselves, stuff like that. So they create consumer baskets by modeling random data that they have. They create characteristics, they create characters and consumer baskets, right? So that's reference to profile. Why am I telling you this? It will be relevant later, and write it down if it's confusing also. I get it if it is. Anyway, so yeah, so this is the introduction. Now coming to the literature review, this is a very important part of any research paper, because you cannot possibly do research unless you know how to deal with that data, unless you've seen how that data has been dealt, right? For example, in this paper, I went through at least 20-25 papers. Even if you don't go through that much, you just need to, there will always be other authors who have had the same data as you, okay, who have identified the same problem as you. Maybe they had a slightly different approach, which is always, that's completely fine. Your novel contribution can be minimal, but still, it will be valued. But reading up on people who have already done something in that field, okay, how they have done it, what have they found, is very important, because it can corroborate your results as well. Okay, that this author did the same thing through a different method, or for example, maybe you took it a step further, but until that very step, until where they did do it, your results are in line with theirs. So that actually helps boost the authenticity of your research. And it also shows that you know what you're talking about, because you've read up on it and you've done enough research on it first, and then you started it. So literature review is another very important part about any paper. Okay, and so how I approach this is that for every methodology step that I used, from modeling to data cleaning to whatever, I showed, okay, like for example, in data cleaning, these are different data cleaning steps that these 4 papers used. This is the data cleaning step that we used, So for every step, I showed different literature review. Okay, now coming to the methodology. For this, let me show you this pretty little thing again. So this is called Crisp DM. Crisp DM I love because it gives any thought process a structure, right? For me, like when I was especially in economics honors and I was doing my undergrad, I did not know where to begin. I did not know, okay, now what? There was always like a confusion in the next step, or, things like that. So Chris TM gives that a method. So the first step in Chris TM is business understanding. Okay, first you understand how something works, what factors that impacted. For example, the business understanding for um, yeah, economics behind colonialism, right? So economics behind colonialism in business understanding, you can mention, you will have to look into why it's relevant today. Okay, how, like, you will have to give examples of how colonialism is still impacting the countries that have been colonized. Okay, how is their economy still being affected? What are the statistics on that, right? And what are the different factors that what are the different statistics? If you're showing statistics, you will have to show statistics of certain factors. So what are the factors that clearly define that colonialism has had an impact, right? And this is an important thing to study. Okay, and so and why is something, colonialism happened in for a lot of countries long back. For some, this just very recently gotten out of it. So you can give that context as well, that this is not an outdated history. This is not like back, like very long back. This is still relevant, and countries are still getting out of the damage that was done to them through colonialism, right? So all of this comes under business understanding. And when you are doing literature review, a lot of the times what helps is that you can basically create a, okay, actually I'll come back to this later, but let's move on to the next one. Okay, business understanding, and next comes data understanding. Now, okay, now you understood that you have this economics colonialism wala thing, okay, and you want to understand like how have the countries been, for example, if you take India, if you take Pakistan, all of them, how have they been impacted? So you will have to take certain parameters into this. You will have to take, say, GDP, say population, say poverty index, say all of these factors. You can also take environmental factors. You will have to take all of these data sets in order to research and compare with a non-colonized company, if that is your objective, or whatever is the approach, whether you want to compare with a non-colonized, or you want to compare with the colonizer, or you just want to show the economy, the economic climate, or scenario for all the colonized countries or one colonized country. You have to find parameters and you have to collect data, right? I think in this case it kind of has to be secondary data only, collected from the government organizations websites. So that would be data understanding. Okay, first of all, how many columns of data do you have? Do you have any missing data? Okay, so let me show you this through my research paper also. Okay, first I'll take a breather. Is everybody following? Is this okay, or am I going too fast? Okay, if I am going too fast, I will put this on you to tell me. Okay, this is not, you have to inform me, be very open about it, and unmute and ask. It's fine. Okay, cool. So business understanding, I already told you. In this, I have also like dived into the objectives of the paper. Okay, what I want to do, I want to find a good dimensionality reduction technique. Dimensionality reduction is uh, okay, so it's like basically when you have a huge amount of data, right? Because in this is electricity consumption data, right? So it's every 15 minutes there's a data point. For years and years, for 10, 15 years we had data. So how do you reduce that data? There's like multiple techniques that you can use. PCA, SAX, there's TSNE, there's multiple. So which one is the most effective? That is the research on its own. So that was one of my first objectives, and reference node profiles, yada yada. So all of this comes under business understanding. What do you want to do with this? Okay, and who it helps. So this work supports ongoing research in local energy communities, yada yada. So that's business understanding. Now, data understanding. Okay, so in this paper, I also mentioned where my data came from. So that's UCD Cylon, BMS, which is like their data management system. Then what parameters are there? There's water consumption, gas consumption, electricity consumption. Okay. Then the location, like for how many buildings across how many hectares of land, how many campuses of universities, okay, what types of buildings exist, academic, residential, basically understanding what your data is, right? And then I also took the academic calendar, because electricity consumption can vary according to holidays, some sort of festival is going on, some sort of I don't know, in the college there's like some fest going on, so though nobody's in the class, all of this impacts electricity consumption. So that was another parameter that I took. Okay, so once you have understood, okay, this is my data, then you need to perform like exploratory data analysis, or EDA. Does everybody know what EDA is? Like, if you know EDA, then raise your hand.
I
Like, I
have
think.
a separate question.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, how do you shortlist or prioritize certain parameters which you specifically want to select from your data? So how do you do that in a research paper?
Yeah,
Because
that's a great question.
Yeah.
Go
because
ahead.
as you said, the data is vast and there are it's multifaceted. So how do you make sure that it aligns with your research objective, and what's your take on it?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. That's like I think that's the step that most of us get stuck, right? Okay, where do I begin with the data collection? So I would suggest step zero, literature review. Okay, see how others did it. See what are the factors that others prioritized. Okay, and then when you've seen, okay, these are the different factors that have been studied. Wait, why didn't they study, say, I don't know, population growth, or why didn't they study media independence, or what? I think media independence is it called, or what is it called? Yeah, media independence. Okay, whatever. So like some political aspect instead of just like GDP and some indices. You can also look into some political aspect, and that could be your novel contribution. But you could always get some idea of valid parameters through literature review, right? And you could also get a good idea of how to analyze. You have the data, that's great, but how are you going to analyze them? Are you just going to take averages? Are you going to perform a specific model into it? So you can look into the different methodologies also that have been taken, and research on your own, and do something new as well, whatever you prefer.
Okay, understood.
Does that? Yeah. Okay, cool. So I asked about EDA. Does anybody know what EDA is, or should I dive into it? Okay, so EDA is important, so I will dive into it because it kind of is like step one. So EDA basically means that you try to understand numerically what your data looks like. Okay, you forget all factor yada yada. You look into zeros. How many, like, are there any missing values? Are there any NaN values? So NaN basically stands for, so zero is still a value. Zero is not a no value. NaN is a missing value. Okay, so a lot of the times Excel will replace a missing value with NaN. Okay, so you have to calculate the number of NaNs that are there in your data. You will have to impute them. There's a technique that, okay, if there's, for example, in like multiple rows of data, there's only one missing value. So instead of deleting the entire row of that data, you can just replace that with the averages of the nearby data, because it will probably be that, and there was probably some instrumentation error or some calculation error, so that data doesn't exist. So you just simply replace it by the average. So that is like one of the methods that is used, but that does not fall under exploratory data analysis. You do not touch the data in EDA. You just study it. Okay, you see if you have any. In fact, I think I might have a table on that. Yeah. So this is data cleaning. Don't look into that. But it's like, you just study the missing data. Is there any noisy data? So noisy data basically means that, so for example, if you are studying for colonialism, you're studying GDP, okay? And there's like certain values, okay? For example, for every row, there's a value of 100, 200, 300, 150, and then suddenly there's a 50,000. So that's noisy data. It makes no sense. It goes beyond any scope. It's not possible. It's kind of an outlier. It's noisy. And also another factor about noise is when like your data is so random. Okay, there's absolutely no sense into it, so you have to narrow it down a little bit, right? So that's another factor for noise. So that's another thing that you have to consider. Okay, this makes no sense, the data is too random, the data is everywhere, so I have to short it down, I have to prioritize. So that is another factor. All of this you only understand once you perform EDA, because that's when you actually look into the data numerically. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay, so next. Okay, then data preparation. Data preparation is basically aligning them properly, and data cleaning if you have any missing data. I will not get into the specifics for this. If you want to ask, you can ask, but I'm sure you can, like, this is not, if you just study up a little bit on data cleaning, or if you're working with anybody, this is not much of an issue. Outlier handling, if there's an outlier, there's multiple ways to handle outlier. These are some complex ways: DB scan, power transformer. A lot of the times, if there's an outlier, it's often just simply deleted. Do not, okay, this is an important thing, do not just delete an outlier because it is an outlier. A lot of the times, an outlier can have some important information to show you. For example, COVID-19 data, data during those years can often be an outlier, but it will show you the fact that there was a pandemic that happened. So that's what the world looked like during a pandemic. So it is an outlier, but it is important information. So every outlier needs to be studied first, needs to be checked first, and only then deleted. Okay, so that is another important thing. Now there's like, if I show you my code, so don't look at the code. Okay, don't worry about the code. So this is a box plot. Okay, I figure you guys know what box plot is, right? Yeah, perfect, great. So this is a simple box plot. On the x-axis, we have the 24 hours of the electricity load data, and on y-axis, we have the load value. Okay. Now, what do outliers look like? So this is data after some level of transformation, so it's still not that noisy. But you can see, okay, at the bottom of 5 o'clock, there are some couple of outliers. These are not that extreme. Okay, I would not delete these, to be very honest. But for example, if there was one here at 100, okay, if there was here one at 100, I would probably look into those and probably treat them as outliers. So this is what it looks like. You can use box plots to see the noise of your data, the number of outliers in your data, and what the distribution, max, min, etc. Okay, so that's a good. Another way to check the distribution of your data is a simple frequency distribution plot, in which you just like plot the value. For example, if you are taking GDP, or if you are taking yeah, let's just take GDP. So you plot it on x-axis, and you plot the frequency of a certain value on y-axis, and see if your data is skewed to any side. Because if it is skewed, then you might have to deal with it by performing some transformations. You might know Z normalization, right? If you are Z normalization, standardization, are you guys familiar with that? So that helps in dealing with the skew. Again, that is, your teachers will teach you that. I am not here for that, because they're better teachers there. Like, I will probably confuse you here. So let me leave that. But yeah, so whenever there's a skew, we often introduce transformation so that it can. So this is what my data looks like. Okay, this is the distribution of my data. You can see there are some clusters. Okay, there's some clusters being formed. There's some patterns that are possibly there. Then this is like, okay, so this is interesting. So on the x-axis, we have the yearly data, and on the y-axis, we have average load, right? And you can see it's a cyclical format, right? Like, it goes down during the winters, then it rises up during the summertime, then winter, summer, da. Why? Because there's breaks during the winter time. Okay, so because Christmas, New Year, and all of that. So you can see it's a cyclical data, which is an interesting thing to see. And then I removed COVID year, so it obviously shows a blank line there. But yeah, it's a cyclical data, and you can see like the consumption values decreased severely after COVID because solar panels were introduced, right? So because of sustainable energy, the electricity consumption, it's considerably decreased. That's another thing that you could identify simply from EDA. I have not touched the data here. Okay, now let's move on to the Christian. Okay, so this is data understanding and then data preparation. Okay, until here, are there any doubts, or if it's going completely anything, we can deal with that. All good? Okay. Wait, I think, yeah, okay. Yeah, and then, okay, so I think the biggest difference between blog posts and articles, no, sorry, blog posts and research is, I would say, the mathematical modeling, right? Because a lot of the blogs that we write in Optima and the articles that we post are research of the knowledge and not analysis of any data. So, this I will show you the paper that I did with Dr. Pooja Sharma. I was one of the contributors, and there were multiple people, all of us worked together on it. And it has a mathematical modeling which falls within the scope of your syllabus. So I think you can learn from that quite a lot. Right. So this paper is very, like, the concept is very simple. We took the data of multiple metropolitan cities. Okay, we took Bangalore, we took Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai. Okay, let me show you. Hold on. Yeah, Delhi, Kolkata, Chennai. Yeah, not Bangalore. Correct. Yeah, Delhi, Kolkata, Chennai, and Mumbai. Okay, and what we wanted to study was, okay, as the urbanization has happened, as number of cars have increased, the GDP has increased, all of that has happened. How has it actually affected the quality of living, the environmental factors, the quality of water, the quality of air? Has urbanization had an impact in any of these things, right? So that was our study. We wanted to see if there's any correlation. Okay, so what did we collect? We first, okay, so you want to see the two things you want to study, the two factors are uh, urbanization and quality of living. Now, first you have to find parameters to measure urbanization, and then you have to find parameters to measure quality of living. So for urbanization, we came up with GDP, we came up with growth rate of population. Okay, sorry. So this paper is like an older version of the published paper. You can find the published paper online. But this is like the paper that I was able to show for now. So yeah, so these are like some of the factors that we took for showing urbanization. So we took growth rate of gross state value also. Yeah, and for the quality of living, we took water quality. So BOD of water bodies here. Then we have average annual concentration of PM10, which is for air quality, and annual temperatures, rainfall, humidity. Okay, so this is for quality of living, kind of. Okay, and then we made a correlation table, which you can easily make from the data analysis tab in Excel. Okay, and we just mapped the data, and we formed the correlation table. And as you can see, for example, PM10 and the population log, we took a log of population because it's a huge value. So log basically makes it easier to compare. Anyway, so that has a strong correlation. Now, correlation is not causation, but it does highlight the importance of the fact that as this has increased, it has impacted. As urbanization has increased, it has severely impacted air quality and water quality. So this was the mathematical modeling done in this. It's very basic. It's very simple. Okay, it's not a lot. Okay, as compared to this paper, in which so let me show you. We did like clustering. Yeah, I don't know if I can show that. Okay. So you don't need to learn this. I'm just showing it to you in case if anybody is interested, they can look into it. You don't have to. If you're not interested in this, it's fine. I'll just gloss over it. Okay. So yeah. Um. Just give me 1 second. Okay, so this is called k-means clustering. K-means clustering is done with unsupervised data. What is unsupervised data? When you do not know what data you're dealing with. There is no category. The end product of modeling is when you're able to create some characteristics. Okay. And for example, one of the objectives of modeling, this is completely random. This is not related to, I'm just giving a very simple example. If you have bank details, okay, of not bank details, but like transaction details of a bank in a bank that have happened, okay, and you're able to identify, no, so for example, that bank mapped after every transaction, oh, this was a fraudulent one, or this was not a fraudulent one, 0101, not fraudulent, fraudulent. So you can run a predictive model which basically can study that data, see the patterns, and guess whether the next transaction will be fraudulent or not. So that is modeling, predictive modeling. Okay, so that is one of the and that is done when you're already given, okay, this was a fraudulent data and this was not a fraudulent transaction. Okay, but what if you're not given whether that transaction is fraudulent or not, and you have to guess it and then model it? That is unsupervised learning. So this is a little out of syllabus, this is a little out of context, but if you are interested in it, you can explore it. If not, leave it. It's not that important. I showed you a very simple paper which did simple correlation analysis and was able to find the correlation between urbanization and quality of living. That's fine too. Okay. Um, yeah, so I was able to find clusters through this. So this data is, as you can see, is completely random, but through k-means clustering, I was able to find groups of data. For example, this is low consumption, this is high consumption, and so on. So for example, you can see like the purple cluster is for high consumption, the pink cluster is for low consumption. So this is how it works. As for the code, do you need to know the code in order to do this research? ChatGPT exists, and I swear you will not have to code anything. I personally hate GenAI, okay? But I do believe that, okay, use, okay, I will be very upfront about this. I have used ChatGPT in research, okay? But you cannot ask ChatGPT to tell you what should I do. You have to tell ChatGPT, this is what I want, give me the code. Because if you ask ChatGPT, I am not saying you want to use it ChatGPT in any other sphere of your life, I'm fine with that. But specifically in research, in my experience, ChatGPT will tell you the wrong thing to do. It will very blatantly lie and tell you this is the right method, and it is not. Okay, when I was doing my research assistantship wala role, um, I I was a fool in the beginning, and I often went to them with the chat GPT answers, and they wrecked me because it was so bad. Like, they were bad answers, they were bad analysis. And so I had to sit and read through multiple research papers, do my own analysis, do my own research, come up with my own answers, and be like, okay, this is the right methodology. Now, ChatGPT, give code, please. And then it gave me code, and then I executed it. So that's how research is to be done. Do not depend on ChatGPT to give you answers. Just allow it to give you like the code. Like, it's your assistant. You are not its assistant. Okay? Just putting it out there because I made huge mistakes in the beginning of my research journey. So don't believe ChatGPT, guys. Okay. Moving on to so you model and then you evaluate that model, which is another important thing. Okay, how good is your model? Now, if you're doing the simple correlation analysis or anything like that, a lot of the times you will have matrix, right? Which can help you understand whether your analysis or whether your premonition or your hypothesis is correct or not. If you have made a proper model, a k-means clustering model, there are indices that can help you with that. For example, silhouette score, Galinsky-Harbras index, and stuff like that, which give you a specific number, okay, which show whether the clustering that you have done is well defined or it's just hodgepodge. If it's hodgepodge, it'll give you a 0. If it's not, it'll give you 1. Okay, that's how indices work. and then you deploy, and it's like an iterative process. When you've done your business understanding and you're understanding the data, you're like, wait, this data makes no sense, I need to go back. And then you do business understanding again, you're like, wait, I need to modify what I started with so that I can collect better data. And then you go back to data understanding, data preparation, you keep coming back, going back. It's like a very iterative process. Okay, so that's for Christian. I supervised learning. I explained to you. It has several methods. I am not going to get into this because I will allow you to ask me about this, and only then I will explore this. Yeah, for data transformation, I know for a fact that you will be learning normalization and discretization and all of this in econometrics, I think. Data reduction, I've already told you, its entire purpose is so that if you have huge amount of data, and for example, it's not even like it's, for example, if it's like GDP, gross value and stuff like that, you can simply remove a dimension based on uh, covariance. Would you know what covariance is? Yeah, covariance we know. Yeah, perfect. So, just in case, covariance basically means how related are two factors. So, example, if I take GDP and if I take gross value, high chances they will have high covariance because they both kind of speak the same thing but have different calculation methods. So, what is the use of having two factors that say the same thing? You're just increasing the processing of your model. So, you take factors that are completely uncorrelated so that you have uh, actual independent factors that can tell you different things. So that is also dimensionality reduction based on simple covariance. Also, you do not need a big hefty technique. And another way of dimensionality reduction is taking averages. For example, you have multiple days ka data for every hour. Instead of taking 24 hours by years, just take an average of a day. So that reduces 24 values to one value. So that's 24 to one dimension. So that's another dimensionality reduction. Okay. So these are simple things that you will or you might need in your data processing. Yeah. Yeah, I think this is not important right now. So I think I have a few more things, but I will let you take the stage now, ask questions, and I will address those.
The floor is open for questions. Is there anyone who'd like to ask or anything? Yes, Mahija, go ahead.
Hi, Didi. So I just wanted to ask you, like you just mentioned that you just wish to reduce the amount of data, the amount of parameters, like by concising it to a particular value. Like you just said that instead of taking 24 different values, we're averaging it out. My question is, usually in statistics, we are very concerned about the room for error. Whenever we take such averages, don't you think that we can leave out certain data or may not be able to account for little changes whenever we are taking an average of something? We may not be able to derive at what exactly needs to be, what is our exact objective of research. We might kind of slightly deviate from it, considering that average doesn't consider all different variables into picture. So whenever we are doing research and we are not kind of getting into specifications, how do we kind of minimize that room for error?
Yeah, that's a great question. And in fact, that's like we have to dedicate a lot of time to finalize a dimensionality reduction technique. You can't, like, for example, you can't just go with one. You have to find metrics. So there's like multiple metrics that you can use to measure the loss of data. So what you're mentioning, the error, all of these things, these are called like metrics for data loss. And what is the metric that is making you lose the most amount of data? And you can measure that by methods like Euclidean distance and stuff. So these are like specific metrics. And another thing that you can use is you visualize your data. For example, with frequency distribution, with box plots, with TSNE visualization, and you visualize them after each dimensionality reduction technique. Okay, and you see how it has impacted your data. If, for example, averaging is really changing the shape, you take the original shape of your data. Okay, for example, this is the original shape of my data, right? When I perform average, for example, if it becomes very standard and like for example, overfitting. Would you know the understand meaning of overfitting? Oh wait, I'm not sharing my screen. Hold on. Um, yeah. So this is the original distribution of my data, right? Without any dimensionality reduction technique used. And now, if I do perform any dimensionality reduction, for example, I average out a lot of the values, then it will probably look like a very uniform data with very less variation, with very, it won't show the original characteristics of my data. So I can see through any of these, for example, you can use this visualization, you can use this visualization to see how that dimensionality reduction technique is impacting your data, how extremely it is impacting it. You can also use metrics to quantify that. And another thing is, as much as we would love to keep all of our data, a lot of the times it is too much to handle, right? So you have to choose like a certain range for your matrix. For example, okay, this is, if my dimensionality reduction technique is losing out on this range of data, this much is fine, but nothing beyond that. You have to decide that. Okay, or you can also decide it in such a way, okay, if I have this amount of data, I can deal with it. But if it is beyond this, for example, if I have more than 20,000 rows, how will I analyze it? I can't. So then you can also find dimensionality reduction techniques that help you in minimizing it in that way. So you have to understand what is your objective with dimensionality reduction. Why are you performing it? Do you even need it? You might not even need it. Okay. So according to that, you have to find an approach. Is that okay?
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Is there any other doubt? Like, are you able to? Yeah, go ahead, Charu.
So you explained us all about like quantitative and analytical research papers. Could you like tell us in brief about theoretical and descriptive research papers?
You would mean that you do not want like research papers without any mathematical analysis?
Yeah.
One would be the literature review that I showed to you, right? In which we're just analyzing the literature that exists. Another would be that you like research different articles, different facts, different ongoings, and you make like your take on it. But that is something that I do not specialize in, and actually I don't like. I work with mathematical analysis mostly, and I would say research 99% of the time needs to have mathematical analysis to some extent, even if it is not. And a lot of the times, like mathematical analysis is not to be done by you calculating. There are simple Excel, like, do you want me to show you one of the like there's a data analysis tab on in Excel which can do the most complex of things in one click. So all you have to do is like study that data, the findings of that Excel. You just have to study that. So that's I think that's essential to research.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
No worries. Any other questions so far?
If people don't mind, I just have one more question. Now, the current research paper that you have showed us is regarding the electricity load. And the one that you have worked upon in the college with Pooja ma'am is with urbanization and probably climate change. So, my question is, if I were to do any research that concerns microeconomics, that is, I need to study consumer behavior and consumption patterns or something like that, and I need to opt for some sampling methods. How do you think, like, personally would be justifiable? Like, suppose if I want to conduct a survey on a particular set of consumers, and I publish a research paper, how can I make sure that whatever is my sampling, or people that view my research paper shouldn't consider it as a biased one, but instead it is a pure survey that actually tells that this is what the consumer behaves on? And do you feel that the approach towards these papers, a survey oriented paper, and the one which already has data and statistics available from secondary websites, the approach should be very different?
Hmm. Yeah. So excellent question. Another one, I think. Yeah. So for sampling, bias is definitely, if you are taking primary data, your survey, there's definitely bias issue, because there are high chances that you will just be reaching out to the people around you, or in a certain geographic, there will be some sort of a bias. At least there might not be as much diversity as is required. So there are, although, so you should aim for as much diversity as required, because a lot of the time, another thing that happens is, when you begin your research, you probably have like this hypothesis in your mind, and you choose the people that you want to take a survey from according to that. That, okay, I think that A will lead to B, so I will find people who will support that. So that also happens. So I would say that, yes, aim for as much diversity as you can. And also, there are several sampling techniques. I'm sure you already know about random sampling and things like that. So there are several sampling techniques that you can use to make your any sample that you are using as uh, you know random, or unbiased as possible. So another, but of course you have to find the right sampling technique for your data. So that is another advice I can give you on that. I have mostly dealt with secondary data so far. So I find that that has been my approach to research until now. And another thing is that for primary data, if you um, yeah, for microeconomics, yes, I think this you can also, another thing you can do on a personal note is talk to one of the teachers who have experience in primary data surveys, because when they do their PhDs and stuff, they often do their thesis on primary data. So that would be another advice, that you can talk to them about this. Yeah. But other than that, to avoid bias, usually according to the methodology, it is supposed to be using the right sampling techniques, etc., and the random sampling and stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah. No worries. Yeah, go ahead, Adita.
My question is actually a very basic one, if it may be so. So I've not yet written a research paper, but I do intend to in the future. The main part where I get stuck is how to find a topic, and after that, that was something that came up in my mind also, is that you showed two research papers. One you co-authored with Pooja Sharma ma'am, and the other the more complicated one, if I may. So there were two very different approaches to data analysis in both of these papers. How do you, number one, how do you choose a topic? Number two, how do you choose which method of data analysis to use? A simpler one like the correlation approach in the first paper, or a more complicated one? Like, how do you go about that?
Yeah, that's excellent question. That's not basic at all. So yeah, I think, for if you have a topic in your mind, okay, for example, if you have do you have some inclination of like a general like umbrella, for example, microeconomics, or you want to take political economy, or Indian economy, or global economics, or international trade, some umbrella that you have in your mind?
Political or developmental economy?
Yeah, you have that, no?
Yeah.
So just go on Elsevier's or Springer or any of these very popular journals or stuff and just type the keyword. Just start with simple political economy. And there are several filters that you can go through, right? For example, the year that you want to see that. If you want the most recent research or you want to look into the COVID times, so you look for 2021, 2022 papers or whatever. You want any other keyword, you'd start with that. You look into the different papers that have been written, which intrigues you, right? And if you're doing, and it doesn't have to be through a research paper also, it can be through any of the recent happenings, if anything inspires you, and you want to do a proper research into it, any political climate right now, Indian politics or whatever. So you can type those keywords there, comma, 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 and you can look into the current research. Okay, so that is one way that you can see, like you can read those papers, you can find how you want to contribute and start your topic from there. Sorry, what was the second part of your, you asked for the topic and?
The topic, and since you said that most research involves some kind of data analysis, how do you like, how to choose which kind of a simpler data analysis method or a more complicated one? Like,
Fair. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's completely fine. I think that again depends on the the problem. Okay, you do not have to choose a more complicated. That's not necessary. Like I showed you now, that paper that got published is simple correlation tables that have been studied very extensively. So even if you're performing a very simple mathematical model, you study it so well, you show its relevance and in today's climate and everything so well that that becomes a novel contribution, right? So if for example you are looking for say political economy, right? So if you want to study anything related to the number of voters that are there, so one could be your annual like voter count and 2 3 factors, and you just see say the correlation. Or you can also look into different, you just type voters political Indian politics on the and see how like what are the other data sets that have been used, because in the beginning of the paper only they will mention, okay, this is the data that we have used, these are the different factors that we have used, and this is how we have analyzed them. So you will have make a note of them, so make a table. Okay, business understand, create the columns: business understanding, data preparation, what was their business understanding, what was the topic. Okay, then data understanding, what was the data they used. Okay, 1 2 3, these were the 3 factors. Data preparation, if you want to write, right, okay, how did they prepare the data, and then modeling, what techniques they used in their quantification, all of that. And what was their final conclusion. So create those columns so you can understand, okay, this is what has happened, and this now I will choose this, and this is something new I'm introducing. So like that will create a structure for you in this.
thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, go ahead, Parikya.
Um, I'm a first year student, so I have like no clue about how to go around a research paper. One of the field that really intrigues me is behavioral economics. It's the field I want to go into. I remember in class 11th, my mama is into the same field, so I ended up reading one of his research papers, though I didn't understand anything. So like if I want to get into that field, what should I start with? Like what should be my idea and conclusion? Like how should I form the paper, and like what what should I basically do?
Right. So your query is that you did try to read a research paper, but then you didn't really understand what it was talking about. So even if you did read it, it didn't help much in making your own, like, in starting your own way into behavioral, right?
Yes.
Right. So another advice that I would give you is start small. Start with something you do know. Okay. Even in behavioral economics, for example, okay, I'll give you this example. I was asked to write a research paper quite recently during my, apart from all of these, it was like we were given random topics by our professor, and we had to choose one, and something like that. So I chose cybersecurity because I found it interesting. Bus. Okay, and so I looked into the research paper so that I did not understand anything. It was about finance and cybersecurity and stuff like that, technical stuff. I did not understand. Okay, but like what it had that I really could understand was game theory. Okay, a lot of the because like basically the topics that our professor gave were not cybersecurity. It was game theory and different like analytical techniques. Okay, regression stuff like that. So I like game theory, so I chose game theory, and then I saw, oh, cybersecurity has game theory. You can actually find good cybersecurity techniques through game theory. So even though I could not understand cybersecurity, because I understood game theory, slowly, I read multiple papers. Okay, I did not just read one. Some I understand about the first paper, and it takes a lot to understand research papers. Okay, when you don't know anything, when it's your first time, I know it takes hours just to go through one paper. That is not a you problem, that is a universal thing. Okay, so don't worry about it if it's taking you whole days, like 1 day, 2 day, 3 day to go through one paper. Believe me, when you go through the second paper, it will take you less time, and less and less and less, and eventually you will go through a paper in no time. So, but the beginning is always hard. But I would say if you're taking behavioral economics, choose a technique in behavioral economics which you have studied, or you have some, so that you can, there's something that you can latch on to. Okay, and then slowly start reading. At least go through one paper. You will understand 40% of it, 30% of it. Good. Okay, that is also fine. When you read the next paper, you will feel like, oh, this I read, this I know, and I will give you confidence. So it's a process. You will never understand everything in one go. You will have to reread it. I, to this date, the 25 papers that I did for my research paper, if like they still confuse me. Okay, so it's fine. It's fine. Just try to go over them again and again if they are very important to your research. A lot of the times, out of like, for example, 20 papers, 3-4 papers will be very, very relevant to your case, almost exactly similar, and you will be like, very, thorough with them. So you will have to go through them again and again and again and again. So that's fine. So yeah, find a paper, sorry, find a topic or find a technique that you can at least to some extent what it's about, and then keep reading about it. That would be my advice.
Would you recommend the usage of AI for analyzing like multiple research papers so that you can draw in conclusions that favor your research gap? And if you would recommend, could you suggest some AI tools that we could use perhaps for drawing in specific conclusions so that it becomes easier to say go instead of going through like 25 papers? You told that it took a long time for you. We could just is there a faster way to do that? Because I have gone through research papers, they're huge. I get lost. I'm picking one point and then I end up nowhere, and I'm supposed to go through 20 of them. So that seems like a tedious task.
That's fair. First of all, 20 is a number that I have given you. It is not important to go through 20 also. It's fine if you go through 5 also. But if you go through those 5 nicely, more than enough. Why I went through 25, I will tell you. Sometimes you go through a paper simply because you want to know more about a one tiny thing. You do not want that whole paper. You just want to know how did they do that data cleaning? How did they do that one specific, So sometimes it's not about the whole paper. Sometimes you just want one topic, and that's fine too. Okay, so a lot of the times there are papers that I did not read fully, but I read through the one thing that I wanted from it, and I read through that properly. Okay, so that's one thing. Okay. Secondly, if you are finding it difficult, okay, you can't escape reading. Okay, you can't. Like, if you are a researcher, if even if I am no researcher, guys. Okay, I am in corporate. I'm going to start my job in Bank of Ireland. I just enjoy writing and like analyze. I would say I'm more of an analyst. Okay, I love dealing with data, and to deal with data properly, I research. Okay, so that's what I do. So, I still found that I could not escape reading a research paper, because if I tried to find shortcuts out of it, it affected everything. Like, okay, so I was working with 2 other people on this complicated paper. Okay, and I like they used to read their papers through AI, through ChatGPT. I used to read it manually, in the end, I had to explain them the papers. Now that could be a them problem. Okay, it could be that you guys deal with it better. All I'm warning you is you can't depend on it fully. What you could do, guys, is give it the research paper, get a summary from it. Okay, what is this paper about according to you? Give proper instructions. Okay, don't keep it vague. Get an overview so that you know what are the parameters. Nothing is new to you. Everything you understand is simple language, and then read it so that you're not walking into it completely blank. Okay, that you can do, but I don't think you can escape reading. That's my personal opinion. You are free to have your own approach. That's completely, there is no right, there is no wrong. In my personal experience, I had to read.
Understood.
Yes. Anything else? Okay. So, also, like, so far what I taught, yeah, go ahead, Adita.
Just a small question. Would you personally recommend using AI to find like literature or references?
No. Because I'll tell you why. It lies, bro. Like, okay, you use AI, okay? You use as much AI as you want, but a lot of you can do this that you ask it, okay, I need papers similar to this, and also give me some, you know, references. You might find something nice in that, but you will always find better. If you want, I could. Do you know how to find good papers on websites like Science Direct and stuff? No? You want me to quickly share my screen and show you? Because, okay. Wait, do you? I did not wait for your yes
No,
or
we
no.
love that. We love that.
Okay, I'll just quickly show you, okay? Because it's not hard and you will actually find it quicker than hustling with ChatGPT. Shoot, I need to sign in from my UCD account. One sec, guys. Yay, okay. So, for example, if you want to look for political economy, okay, and you want to look in Indian climate, and you want to look for anything else, corruption, any other that you want?
Cast. That would be
Cast.
really near to think of.
That's very interesting. This is such bomb. I would love to contribute to this research. See, okay, female politics, corruption in rural India. Okay, so these now you could also shortlist by removing these 2001. You don't want these papers. You want, and also it's better to have as recent papers as possible. By the way, that's like a rule in kind of but it does you don't have to, like most research papers should be recent. If there are some papers that are very relevant but a little older, that's fine, but most should be as recent as possible. And if you don't want, say, encyclopedia or whatever, you want discussion, you want editorials, you just want like proper research articles, then you can shortlist from that as well. Okay, if you want specific subject areas, if you want it through a psychology perspective, you can do that also. So you can properly filter and everything from here. There's another advanced beyond this, you have further advanced research. Okay, and okay, another trick. Now, for example, condoning corruption, who votes for corrupt political parties? Interesting paper, right? Now, okay, you found how it did it, and there's what data they are using, far left, yada yada. Now, uh, another cool trick is, I don't know, maybe you guys know this already. Go to their references. Okay, and here though you pakka, because you already found one paper that is very relevant to your research. Now this author will give you more papers that are relevant to your research, and then when you go to these papers, this author again will give you more papers relevant to your research. Does that make sense?
It does. It does.
Pakka.
Yeah, so it like forms a building base for us to go through literature.
Yeah.
It makes it more niche and specified as we go about, figuring out even more research papers that relate to that.
Exactly. And it makes it quicker, I feel. Like you're not like in the dark, like completely bungling about oh, what to do, what to do. You found one paper, two paper, three papers on your own through keywords. And then through those papers, you can keep, coming across more relevant papers. So that is, and if you find five, six relevant papers, that's great research also. Like start from there, start from five papers.
Didi, just last question.
Yeah, ask as many.
Advita has gone for like something based out of caste or something like that. I just wanted to ask you that these are very subjective things. And if I want to kind of prove my research through mathematical analysis, doesn't it become very forceful to prove my finding? That it's a subjective opinion, but I'm trying to back it up with a very mathematical or statistical model just to remain concrete and relevant with my proof. But doesn't it appear very forceful कि मतलब research prove करने के लिए मैं कर रही हूँ उसको तो I mean I think it's very challenging to tackle such papers which are kind of sensitive and subjective in opinion. So if I were to take something like what Advita is taking, how do I go about it so that it doesn't appear that I'm forcing myself to prove through that data? Instead, remain subjective in my opinion.
Okay. Give me an example of one of the topics that you are thinking, or a title, or.
I mean, just an example, like how Advita told, how is caste influencing politics or political votes? And we are only seeing caste as a factor of how it is affecting political wins for any party. I think there are a lot of other factors and other parameters also that equally influence as much as caste does. And when we get into such a sensitive and a subjective topic and we try to prove that, it's very difficult to get data also in these scenarios. Access to data and something like that, it is difficult. And even if I get access to data, analyzing it, coming to a conclusion is also difficult. So how do you tackle such subjective topics and still, kind of, I mean, I really hope you're trying to understand what I am trying to ask you.
Oh yeah, you have a fair question. Don't worry about it. That's completely, it's a good question to ask, especially in topics like these. So first of all, since you all, I think you yourself mentioned that caste is not just one parameter to discuss the influence on politics or elections, right? That was one thing that you think. So that means that you're considering multiple parameters. So what you can do is you can have what are those parameters that you think are important? For example, a poverty line or anything. So you compare you can find simple correlations. You can find the patterns. You can find regressions. You can all of these things and compare which factor impacts more. you know if you are the sort of researcher who does not think that or does not think caste impacts, or yourself want to investigate whether it does at all, you're completely neutral to it, then take that approach. you know find multiple factors or whatever the factors there are in your mind, and you do not have to push any agenda. If you go with a hypothesis in a research, it will show in your research. A researcher can very easily see that you took biased data or you did biased research and you did not reveal the full statistics. That's very easy to identify. So do not go in with your own hypothesis. Allow the data to show you results. And if you think that caste is not enough to show what you want to find, then find more factors or explore more factors and compare those factors, and write your research or analysis on those. Does that make sense? And then about data. So if you're not finding secondary, you will find secondary data on this, first of all. But if you don't, primary data is another way. Of course, if you are going through the primary data route, it will always take a little longer. So it can't be a small key fatafat 2 months में research भी 3 months में. You can't. You will take time if you are taking primary data.
Sure, thank you. I think you've been really insightful and helpful for anyone who would love to pursue research.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to hear that. Yeah, any other questions that you guys have? Yeah, okay. I really hope that any of the techniques that I discussed were not were explained properly and did not I did not gloss over them. But the only intent was to introduce that these things exist because I approached it from a standpoint that I did not know these existed during economics honors. Okay, I did not know any of this that I know now. So my objective was to give you a very crash course. This is not a detailed thing. This is not, there is much more to this. But I just wanted to introduce you to it so you know that, okay, this exists and this is where I want to go and find more detail. Maybe the next boot camp that you do with somebody else, you can specify, okay, this is the technique that we want to discuss with you, etc. Supervised, unsupervised, research articles, whatever. Descriptive, as I think Parigya suggested, no, Charu suggested, right? So, yeah, that was the objective.
I personally was very intrigued by the k-means cluster, which I guess was for the
Really?
unsupervised data. So I
Yeah.
would love it. I think the time constraint is there for the meet, but I would love if you could share some resources on how to properly go about it and some insights in that. So it would be great if you could share some resources to me. I could forward them in the group perhaps. But I was very intrigued about the k-means cluster in particular. So, yeah.
That's awesome. I love K-means. I have been doing K-means for a whole year.
It's the first time I was introduced to this, and the fact that there's uncharacterized data, it's just because that's practicality, and it's complex
exactly.
to solve variables like that.
So will not find label data. Yeah, it's difficult to find label data in real world scenario. Usually in corporate, it's very easy to find label data where everything data has a label and then you just create models out of it. But in real world, in the research scenario, sustainable energy, economics, all of this, you will find unsupervised data. You will have to label it on your own using clustering and then create models for sure. So, go ahead.
Yeah, so I would just love if you could share the PPT or the resources that you have specifically for a k-means cluster. I'd love to know more about it.
Yeah, I can do that. And honestly, K-means K-means. Then there is DB-scan. Then there's like multiple clustering techniques, and you will find them. K-means especially you will find on YouTube. Like you will easily. This is something that you can easily study up on YouTube. I can share some of the articles that I have for unsupervised learning, the dimensional reduction, the modeling, which are very nice, very simple language and well explained on with you, Corby. I think you can forward it to your bachelor's in Optima. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And one last question, I think I can conclude since no one has any other questions. I would love to know how you got into research. Like, since when did you start research? And I'm pretty sure it wasn't always about mathematical modeling. Like, what was your first step with research? Was it like research articles or blogs? And how did you go about it? And how did you grow into writing full-blown research papers? So, would love to know that.
Yeah. So I started because I wanted to create a good CV. Okay. That was my objective. That my CV should have everything. It should have corporate experience. It should have research experience so that I can get selected everywhere. That was the objective. So I texted Dr. Pooja Sharma that, ma'am, I am so passionate and I was passionate about analysis by then, but I had no clue about research. I did not know how it's done. I was writing for Optima, but then I had writing experience and I had analytics experience, no research. So I just texted her that I am enthusiastic here to learn. If you have any opportunity, please let me know. And then thankfully she called me and she's like, okay, I have something and you will be working with a team. And then there were two students, two of us, one was from St. Stephen's and me. So him and I worked on this paper and basically Dr. Pooja Sharma, since it was our first paper, was our guide. Like she used to sit with us in meetings, tell us how it's done. We used to do it on our own, collecting the data, analyzing the data. But then she would sit with us and tell us why we are doing this, what is the objective, how it's to be done, and then we would execute it. So I definitely had a mentor. So I would say that having a mentor definitely helps. If I would have tried to do it alone, I might have abandoned the project completely. Having a mentor definitely helps. Dr. Prishma was from my university, and I was able to thankfully find that resource. For Devajit, he contacted somebody in a different college altogether, from St. Stephen's to here. I mean, they are actually, I think they're some sort of, they do have a connection, but still. So use your connections if you have any in other colleges with professors. Email professors on random that I am in Dolathram College, I am this, that, I write for Optima. Send them your work, any articles that you've written, and tell them that I love the work that you do. These are the articles that I have read, research papers that I have read that you have, published, and I loved them. If you write anything on this, please contact me. I would love to contribute. You know, do all of that if you want to find a mentor. Once you write a paper, it will, like, once you start writing one or once you finish one off, it will not feel that complicated. It will always be hard. Okay, it's research, but you will have the know-how and you will have the confidence that okay, I know how to do it. It's just about doing it that is gonna make me suffer. But it won't. Like I always had fun. To be very honest, I always had fun. So
That's so nice to hear. And I believe I is there anyone who else who has any questions? Or else we could conclude the meet. I guess not. So, Faguniti, I'd like to thank you so much for your presence today. Thank you for taking our time from your schedule to just give us. I love the fact how you broke down and simplified research for all of us. It was just so easy to understand and grasp things. And I got to learn a lot from you, and I'm sure our members got some amazing takeaways for themselves as well. And yeah, just give a heart if you love the meeting. And Maguniti is just amazing. I love you, Mike. So, and to all the participants, thank you. Thank you so much for joining the session. I really hope it was fruitful to you. And I hope you jotted down the important pointers since there were like a lot of insights about the platforms to use, the different methodologies. And I hope they were fruitful for you all. And thank you for joining this meet. You all are free to leave now. And Faguniti, once again, a big thank you.